Hey, Zern listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch. Wait, are we going to see it? They're going to show it? Ah, good. Okay. What is this going to show us?
They're my mom's side are in England. I'm not gonna
Right.
like keep you
So
a
that's what I'm saying.
secret by any means.
No, you're not gonna keep me a secret, but what I'm saying is like, this is what we do is we have our little tiny wedding since it's at the end of this month and we have no time to get everyone there. Then we go to your side of the family and we do the same thing in England.
Yeah,
That way
it'll
everyone...
have to be a world.
Yeah, so if I fit this in with my conspiracy theory about what was going on, that at this point, it sounds like this is soon after the honeymoon. So this is a month prior to the weddings, I think is what they're saying. And it's weird to see them, because it seems like Cole is legit in it to win it. I mean, it's possible that he's putting on a show, but, the way he's talking, it seems like he's making plans for after the wedding, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that. Like, if you were sure or even suspecting you weren't going to marry someone, you would think you wouldn't talk like that. Who knows? But it's interesting to see them in that mode. So my conspiracy theory is that around the time of the bipolar comment, which I think was after this in the timeline, they had decided independently or together that they were not going to get married. And they either agreed that she would say no, and then she surprised him with blasting him on stage. I think that's what happened. Do I think that Cole was going to say yes at the altar and was planning on saying yes? He kind of danced around that question a little bit. It's hard to know, but I suspect, I don't know, it's just my idea, but we're going to see the tangerine situation. Let's watch. Oh, they have that plastic film over the control panel of the fridge. I feel an urge to take it off. It's very satisfying.
Tour to catch everybody.
What would be like? Done. So not everyone's kind of in the same place. It's still like a lot of traveling.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the idea is still good.
You will eventually meet everybody.
Yeah.
That is just a massive amount of people.
A massive undertaking.
From corners of the world to get together.
Okay, so we haven't seen it yet, but supposedly, according to Zay, Cole was thinking she's eating and she shouldn't be eating. How do I get her not to eat? So if you didn't follow that I think that's what the accusation was. So let's watch.
I talk a lot of Cole. Mm-hmm. What does that even mean?
Like a lot of it is just like you like either breaking out in song, dropping some bars. Yeah.
Peeling oranges? Are you about to eat 2 of those?
Maybe. That's a serving.
Okay, so let's review. Maybe we won't get a definitive feel either way, but it is notable that they did talk about how they had a playful way of kind of jabbing at each other verbally. We saw a lot of moments like that. They showed a montage of supposedly Zay criticizing and nagging, according to him, his word, at him. And then he defended her and said, no, we had a real playful way of playing with each other. And so it wasn't her criticizing. It was just, we were playful. She would comment about the towels and I would say, oh, come on. And, it was just, we were having fun. And it was a way of communicating, and it wasn't terrible. So he said to her, he started it by saying that you didn't listen to me. That's what I said. And then she says, well, I only listen to you half the time. So if I was to see that, if they were my clients, I'd say, like, you got to be careful because you might be making jokes and thinking they're jokes when they're not actually jokes. Because it could be a passive way of actually attacking someone. From the outside, it looks like they're actually fighting, but on the inside, they're convincing themselves, we're not fighting, we're just playing with each other. But actually, they're kind of passively fighting and expressing hostility and complaints. So he says, that's what I said, you didn't listen to me. She says, well, you know me, I never listen to what you say. And then he gets this face like, huh? Like, facts. Is everyone understanding this? And then, so now they're in that zone. And did the Cuties, Tangerine, Mandarin situation happen within that agreement of like, we take jabs at each other? Let's watch.
And my aunt's noticed that.
So that doesn't sound like a massive undertaking.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be if we were having like a reception in England.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Sometimes I wonder if you hear the words that I am saying.
Yeah, so I think what was happening, just to break it all down, play by play, if you will, that he was suggesting a reception in England and trying to convince her of it. He's making a case for it, and she seems a little skeptical or wary about that. And he's making a case. And then she makes a statement as if it's a new suggestion, saying like, well, it wouldn't be that much work. If it was a reception in England, he's like, well, yeah, that's what I've been trying to convince you of this whole time. And he says that, and he says it in a jokey way. Sometimes I did, and then she makes her response.
You already know I don't listen half the time.
Facts.
So, playful. I don't listen half the time. Facts, right? So, are they trying to communicate? So be careful out there if you're in a relationship that has this style of jokiness, because I've actually worked with couples where this became a problem. It was a pattern where they thought they were just joking around, but they were frequently going too far with it and hurting each other's feelings. Doesn't mean you can't joke around. Sometimes joking around is a perfect antidote to the seriousness of a conflict, to bring it down and help people to communicate. But I suspect for the two of them, they have some hidden hostility towards each other.
Did everybody hear that?
You just talk a lot of coal.
Right? So then he says, "Does everyone hear that?" And then she says, "You just talk a lot of coal," meaning you're a frivolous, ridiculous person or something. They see a look on his face.
I talk a lot of coal? Mm-hmm. What does that even mean?
Like a lot of it is just like you like either breaking out in song, dropping some bars.
Okay, looked at it in a certain way. It's not a terrible thing to say to your fiance, but I think he's hurt by it. He's trying to exhibit that. Okay, there's a more direct way of talking to each other. She could say like, "Oh, sorry, honey, I don't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm just saying, like, you talk a lot. Not bad. I like it when you do things like that, but sometimes I get a little distracted," or I don't know. There's just other ways of saying things. Or he could say, "That kind of hurts my feelings because I feel like I'm a fun person. I thought you liked that about me. Do you not like it when I sing bars or sing stuff?"
Oh,
Killing oranges? Are you about to eat 2 of those?
maybe. That's a serving. You
Better-
okay with that?
You better save your appetito.
Okay, so let's break it down. So in the midst of all that hostility, hidden hostility or passive aggression, he says, "You're going to have both of those." All right. Does he know that she's sensitive to those kinds of statements? Because for people with issues, which I don't know if they just began while she was on the show or she's always had those issues. I don't know. It's not common for people to suddenly develop restrictive behavior around food. I don't know. I can't know. But if she has a sensitivity, because if someone said that to me, because I don't have an issue with that, and I was eating 2 of them, or even if literally my wife said like, "Are you sure you want to eat all that?" Like I would probably be like, "Huh, well, I don't know, maybe." It wouldn't get under my skin because I'm not sensitive to that kind of criticism. I'm sure people have said things to me in my lifetime, friends or my wife. I don't think my wife would say something, but anyway, people would say something. Although, I don't know, being in a Japanese-American family, it's just like you're supposed to eat all the time. So it's probably been the opposite. Anyway, point is that if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, then you're going to be sensitive. It doesn't mean you're irrational. It just means that given your history and given how you see the world, and women in particular, of course, are massively oppressed. I've talked about this before, that women and their body shape and the way they present is highly related to how they're valued as a human being, right? And we've studied this, that people will have a different body shape and will be treated worse, will be seen as less intelligent, as less competent, as less valuable as a human being. They'll be given a lower pay when they're hired, or they won't be hired. The 2 people, identical resumes, one person and they have a picture of the individual, and one person has a different body shape that is considered to be unappealing conventionally or something, and they won't be hired even though they have all the qualifications. We have this massive problem with that. So there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of oppression, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of messages from society and within families. It gets internal. People can have a lot of complexes around that. We have a lot of specialists. I used to specialize in helping people with this. And so, and by the way, I don't anymore, because the amount of case management that's required often with people with eating disorders is extensive, meaning that I need to coordinate care with the dietitian and the physician and the family and the parents and the friends. I need to have frequent conversations potentially with the client throughout the week. And there's day treatment, inpatient. It gets extensive. I liked doing it at the time, but I'm at a point in my career right now where doing the podcast is really dominant in my life, and I unfortunately don't have time for that kind of work. And there are plenty of people in Seattle that can do that kind of work. Anyway, point is that if you have an issue with that, you're going to have an issue with that. So he says that. It could be argued that that's a nasty thing to say that he's saying. Could be argued, given the way he followed it up with, you're going to kill your appetite, that he's saying that because it's just an appetite thing, and maybe he comes from a family. I remember growing up, I would go to someone else's house, because in my family it wasn't really like that. We always had an appetite in my family. Like, we could eat a lot of food before dinner and still eat our whole dinner. That just wasn't a thing in my family. But I would go to other people's houses, and I remember, like, we would have a snack in the afternoon, and people would be like, well, don't ruin your appetite. And I'm like, believe me, nothing will ruin my appetite. Come dinner time, I will eat everything. And I'll probably be hungry afterwards. So don't worry about my appetite. My appetite will be, I'm always hungry. So, so anyway, maybe Cole comes from that kind of family where it's like this don't kill your appetite is a thing. Maybe they've even talked about that before. Or he's shaming her, which is an absolute possibility, because he has an issue with the way that she looks. We don't know if it has to do with her body.
Did everybody hear that?
You just talk a lot of Cole.
I talk a lot of coal? Mm-hmm. What does that even mean?
Like, a lot of it is just like you, like, either breaking out in song, dropping some bars.
I will say that the conversation is spiraling. They're escalating in their passive aggression towards each other, and there's probably distress for both of them that they don't notice that's happening for them, and that isn't apparent from the outside. So that's just a suspicion, but I don't know. And when we have amped up distress, we can interpret things or say things that we wouldn't normally.
Killing oranges? Are you about to eat 2 of those?
Maybe. That's a serving. You okay with that?
You better save your appetito.
I've only had a banana
Talking
and
like-
a scoop of peanut butter today.
Big old sucker tonight.
So,
Okay, I was like, oh my God, what is he doing? He was talking about a big old supper. So, yeah, I mean, if you take it like if he were my partner and he said something like that to me, given my sensitivities, I would not interpret that as him body shaming me or food shaming me. I would interpret that as he is wanting to make a big meal and wants me to eat it with him. He is saying that. Now, he could be passively using that as an excuse to attack her regarding her food and send her a message, trying to get her to restrict and diet, that sort of thing. So, I don't know. Hard to say. It certainly isn't. It doesn't sound like the way Zay was portraying it, right?
dropping some bars. Oh.
Killing oranges? Are you about to eat 2 of those?
Maybe. That's a serving. You
Better-
okay with that?
You better save your appetito.
I've only had a banana
Talking
and
like-
a scoop of peanut butter today.
Big old.
Now, I think given Cole's naivete and youth or inexperience or something, it made it so he did not pick up on what she's saying right now. He's sort of in his own world about describing how large this supper is going to be. She is hearing that. If I heard someone say that, I would immediately suspect, if not highly know, that, oh, no. I'm not saying you shouldn't be eating, because she's saying, she immediately say, is that okay with you? that implies she believes he is criticizing her, not because of the appetite thing, but because, because she thinks that he's criticizing her food and her body, her eating and her body. And then she says, I've only had a banana and a scoop of peanut butter today. And they're preparing for dinner, right? So there's a lot of indications that something's going on there of just like, oh, wait, no, that's all you've eaten today? Like, no, eat, please, more, Or do you think that I'm saying something right now? All right, let's clear some stuff up. So he did not, he either was saying something to her and actually likes her restricting, which is possible. There's no really direct evidence of that, but it's possible. Or it just went over his head and he did not hear basically what she is saying right now.
2 of those?
Maybe. That's a serving. You okay with that?
You better save your appetito.
I've only had a banana
Talking
and
like-
a scoop of peanut butter today.
Big old sucker tonight.
So,
You only had a banana today? Mm-hmm. Why?
oh,
And then, yeah, okay, well, it didn't go over his head. So, okay. It's on the camera. So, so Zay's, we're gonna go back, actually. It's almost midnight. And I'm trying to be quiet because I don't want to keep my wife up, but I didn't realize I'd have so much to say about the last episode. But so I'm like, I need to go to bed. But it's so interesting to actually have the footage to look, because it's a big question, right? Is she distorted? Is he lying? What's the truth? And it's really been a thought of mine from the beginning, because that very first fight that they had on the very first day, I was like, she seems like she's distorting, but I don't know, because they didn't have the cameras there filming while he was supposedly completely betraying her by being quiet in that morning and blowing her up. And then that's what started the whole thing. That's when their conflict began. And so now we actually have the real situation, right? And then we have the claim that she made. So was there a distortion there, right? So I want to go back and see what she says. But anyway, when he says, you've only had a banana today? Now, I think it goes over his head that she's showing signs of someone that has an issue with food and is sensitive to that kind of criticism or statements, right? So I think that went over his head, but it did not go over his head that she's only had a banana and a scoop of peanut butter and now she's having 2 mandarins. That did not go over his head. He's like, why? Why would you only have a banana? Big old sucker tonight.
so.
You only had a banana today? Mm-hmm. Why?
I mean, I'm laughing because he's so oblivious. But I think most people are, I guess. I don't know what I'm seeing, but there's huge red flags that are just waving in the air, and he's like, huh? But I think most people are like that. So he's exhibiting. Now, if they had a history of these kind of conversations and there were frequent comments about her eating and she shouldn't be or whatever, and he always has some excuse, maybe we could say, like, she could say, no, you don't understand. Yeah, that one, but he did this all the time. And, so we don't know.
Why?
Oh, I could
I offered
definitely
you
tell
a
you, but I
poke
probably
bowl.
shouldn't. I know you did, but we had that last night.
Okay, so some more data. He says, I offered you a poke bowl. Why did you only eat a banana? So if you're Zay, at least there's evidence within this tiny little short conversation that he's not shaming you for eating a tangerine, a mandarin, because he literally offered you to, something. Now, maybe he offered it and said, like, well, maybe but it doesn't seem likely, right? Plus she then says, well, we ate it we had that last night. Another huge red flag. It's like, so you ate nothing, Now, if you have an issue like this, find a specialist. It is something that is it creates a lot of suffering, and it emerges from a lot of trauma and can be traumatizing. It's very difficult to deal with. It's not something you can just sort of willpower away. There's a lot of suffering. It takes years, in my experience, to recover. And when you recover and you're on the other side, there's often ongoing care and ongoing work that needs to be done. But life on the other side is a lot less suffering. Now, I don't know if she suffers from any kind of disorder, but there are some huge red flags there. But something I would hear people say once they started to recover, they'd be like, yeah, when I was in the midst of my restricting, I had all these like rules and all these procedures that basically added up to me restricting, all these justifications. And one of which is like, well, I already ate that yesterday. Or, I had 3 apples 3 days ago. I don't need to have any food today. And it'll sound right to the individual because it's a slippery slope. It's a progression to that. It's not like they suddenly had that perspective. It was little perspectives here and there. It's a similar progression as someone who has an addiction, where you'll hear someone who drinks every day and they start drinking at noon. And they'll say like, well, I don't drink in the morning, so I'm not an alcoholic, or something like that. And you're hearing that, you're like, are you hearing yourself? You drink every day. You start at noon and you drink until you fall asleep. That's not a problem? Well, that didn't just happen overnight. It's over time. At first it was like, I can have one more drink. I can drink on a Tuesday with no one around. It's not a big deal. Hey, people drink with dinner every night. The Europeans do it. Everything's fine. Hey, it's just one day. I just had a drink at noon. Not a big deal. I'm not going to do it every time. Big deal. People have drinks sometimes in the afternoon. What's the big deal? And then, over time, the excuses pile up, the self-deluding builds up, and you're drinking every day at noon until you fall asleep. And you have this elaborate system of excuses to prop up the addiction, not because you're a bad person, but because you depend on the substance to cope. Also, there's withdrawal symptoms you're trying to avoid. Anyway, so people with eating disorders can sometimes have that progression and that mindset that will set in that will, from the outside, sound very odd. But anyway, so I don't know if that's what we're saying, but she says that, well, I had a poke bowl last night, so yeah, that's why I turned down the poke bowl. But at the very least, we're looking at the accusation towards him. And there's a lot of evidence pointing toward her having distorted this to mean what she felt it to mean and to have a reason to blast him or something. Now, was she lying about the Cuties story, or was she distorting it? We don't know. Or was she telling the truth? Because he is kind of a jerk face in general. I don't know. What do you think?
Banana today? Mm-hmm. Why?
Oh, I could
I offered
definitely
you
tell
a
you, but I
poke
probably
bowl.
shouldn't. I know you did, but we had that last night.
Oh, are you getting a wedding dress?
Something like that.
Wedding dress bod?
And that comment also is interesting because it sounds like doesn't know what she's up to or something, and is like, oh, because now maybe it's because it's on camera and he's just playing it up, and behind the scenes he was ridiculing her up and down. We don't know. But he's coming from a place of like, so you're not eating? Why? That's weird. Are you trying to lose weight to get into a wedding? Like, what's going on? There's a lot of things pointing towards that she was distorting. So we'll listen to the way she portrayed this statement.
That, and like, they didn't know she was going to say that, but when she did, they're like, I'm with her. Or it could have been premeditated, and you're like, I'm going to tell him this, guys. Just want you to know, and you have my back.
So I had no communication with my friends. No one knew what I was going to say. I remember even texting my best friend. She's like, so you're still going to, like, people had known things that had happened.
Right. So if she was distorting and or lying, she is feeding all of her friends and the fellow cast members all these horrific stories about Cole. And the way Cole comes across, it's not hard to believe, because the things that he said, like, I don't do nurses. So it's not a stretch to take that and to stretch it out to what Zay is claiming. Plus, why would you disbelieve someone that's so sure of a story like that? Anyway, so she's telling all her friends all that information. I mean, if these were distortions and or lies, that's pretty awful to tell a bunch of people that. But if she's distorting, it is her reality. It is the way that it feels. It is what the memory is in her brain. So if that is what it is to her, then yeah, you're going to tell your friends about that.
Like like the trying to control what I ate and me changing my eating habits. People, a couple of my friends knew. They were COVID.
Sorry.
So she is dropping that in of he's trying to control my eating habits, commenting on what I'm eating. Let's rewind.
Like the trying to control what I ate and me changing my eating habits. People.
Okay, so that's the claim. Where's the data? If you've ever been a student of mine, you've heard me say that annoyingly a bunch of times. People will make a claim about a client that they have. They'll be like, yeah, my client, this and that. I'll be like, all right, that's the claim. Where's the data? Demonstrate to me that that claim has merit, right? And sometimes students will have good data and sometimes they won't. And when they don't have data, I'm like, well, then you're just making up shit. So, go back to the drawing board and start gathering the data, all right? I don't say it like that, but that's what I'm halfway thinking. Anyway, it's normal that students don't know how to gather data. It's not a common thing that is taught. It takes a lot of practice, and I'm not great at it either all the time. But anyway, so she just made a claim, and she is now going to provide the data. And you would imagine that if you're going to make a claim like that, you're going to highlight the best data point that demonstrates your claim, right? You're not going to, if you have 15 data points that justify what she says, you wouldn't pick the least egregious one. You would pick the worst one in all likelihood. So when she picks what she considers to be the worst example of him controlling what she's eating, she comes up with the Cuties story, right? Let's watch.
A couple of my friends knew. They were COVID
Sorry, he
testing,
did
so
that?
okay. Yeah, it was.
That's hilarious. I never once cared about what you ate. What are you talking about?
I
Yeah, it's interesting because rewatching this, having watched the Tangerine story, because at the time I'm like, wait, what? Because she says it so definitively. If you were her friend or you were another cast member, why wouldn't you believe her? Because she doesn't come across as ambiguous. She's like, yep, this happened. And then when he says, what are you talking about? I remember at the time thinking like, whoa, did he say that? And then when he says that, I remember thinking like, well, so seeing that story, you could sort of side with his reaction. I think, I don't know though. Am I against the viewership? I hope I'm not. And by the way, I'm not saying she's lying. I'm not saying she's not telling the truth. I'm not saying he is telling the truth. I'm just saying, I don't know. And let's look at the data.
was one day, it was like 2 p.m. We were still filming. I hadn't had a chance to eat. So I grabbed 2 Cuties, like little tiny oranges that fit in the palm of your hand. And he looked at me and he goes, are you going to eat both of those? And I said, well, like, yeah, that's a serving. And he goes, well, we're going out to eat later. Like, maybe you should save your appetite.
Oh my God.
Okay, so that is accurate. She is actually being accurate about what he said, but she's painting it possibly in this very extremely different light, right? That is what he said. He said, are you going to eat those? And he said, you should save your appetite.
I cannot believe that you would say that, Zay.
This is all working out so wonderfully in your favor because they did not use it.
Oh my God.
But I'm not.
Okay, so if it is the way that it looks, which is him in a bumbling, naive way, walking into a situation where he's being presented data that she is sensitive about comments about what she's eating. And he's just like, huh? Because that's the way it looked to me. If that's really what happened, the way she's portraying it is distorted or a lie if that is an original assumption is true. And remember, her claim was that he comments on her eating and is abusive about her weight or something and is trying to control what she eats. Now, it's possible that she's like, well, that wasn't the worst moment, but that was the moment that was caught on camera. That's why I brought it up, right? But even then, like, it didn't look that way. But it could have been if it was a part of a larger pattern. I don't know. What do you think?
Not crazy. I'm not a
Please air
pathological
it.
liar.
If you have it, please air it.
I hate that the incredible bonds you guys shared in the pods didn't translate into the real world.
I am too.
But that
But I can't
is
wait
the
to
reality of
see.
it.
I can't wait to see you a year from now. I really can't.
All right. Well, let's end it there. It's been quite a journey. It is 4 minutes to midnight. And I mean, I'm a night owl anyway. I usually stay up till 1. So, but I'm usually kind of winding down at this point. I'm not usually working with the lights and the camera and in my work shirt. So, yeah, I'm a little punchy at this point, but yeah, it's been quite a journey this season. I enjoyed watching it. I like Love is Blind because they condense the show down to this short amount of time. It's just been 12 episodes, and the scenes move by really quickly. If this was a TLC, 90 Day Fiance show, they would really string it out more. Having said that, there were some episodes where I was like, okay, like this isn't for me. When people go shopping or even the bachelor party stuff, I'm just like, yeah, it's get to the juicy. I don't know, that's just me. But anyway, I like the show. I like that they showed the cutie scene. They didn't. I feel like 90 Day Fiance would have just let that hang out there. I don't know why that happens sometimes, but the fact that they actually showed it, was extremely helpful, right? To have what actually happened, to match that up with their reaction. Now, his claim, he's like, I never said that. Well, that's not true because he did say that. But he's probably saying, I never was trying to say the way that you're interpreting it, right? And you could argue that it's not unreasonable to interpret it the way that she is. It's not completely out of left field. And it lends itself to that reality that you can hear two different realities. She's saying he said this, this, and this. She's saying he said those things. He's saying I never said those things. And when you watch it, it's in the middle. He did say those things, but it didn't mean seemingly what she interpreted it as to mean. So they were both wrong and they're both right. And that's often the case that I would find with now, I don't usually have the benefit of recording, but when I do have some data to back it up, it usually is the case. And it is weird how two people can be wrong and right and completely different stories. It's weird, right? It's Rashomon effect, that kind of thing. But what other kind of summary can I say about this season? I probably yammered way too much about the conspiracy theories. I think a lot of it I was wrong about. That was probably boring stuff, so I apologize for that. But it concerns me, obviously. What else can I say? It gave us an opportunity to have a presentation like Zay and to speculate about what's happening internally for her and what her relational traumas might be. With 90 Day Fiance, when I see a preoccupied, attached person or someone with a personality syndrome in the schemas that I'm speculating might be present with Zay, with 90 Day Fiance, I often have more data to feel more confident in a speculative hypothesis. Even with Love is Blind Season 2 with Danielle, there was a very consistent reaction from Danielle that seemed to indicate something along those lines. With Zay, it's harder for me to make a strong speculative conceptualization. So but I think by the end we have a stronger case of some issues, but still not firm. Anyway, and I'm not saying I was diagnosing Danielle. I obviously wasn't, but there are times when I start to develop a conceptualization, and then I have several more episodes and data points where I'm like, oh, that matches what I was guessing at earlier. Doesn't mean I'm diagnosing, of course. I would never do that. It's not even really a diagnosis, attachment style. We got to see Alexa and Brennan get together. That was nice to see. A cute couple. They seem really compatible. They seem really sweet as well. It's nice to see that. Because in relation to season 2, particularly since none of the couples, I don't know. If none of the couples ever got married, I feel like it would be hard to watch the next season with a lot of optimism or with the same kind of like excitedness, because that's the whole idea. It's like, who's gonna marry and spend the rest of their lives together? Anyway, all right, it's not officially after midnight. Everyone out there. Until next time, and please take care of yourself, take care of others. Think about your distortions. Don't have things go over your head. Talk to a therapist. Heal from our issues because we all deserve it. We really, really do.